All right, heroes, please settle down, take your seats, settle down, everybody. Just take your seats so we can get started here. You do that again, you're going to the principal's office. Hello there, heroes. I'm your substitute teacher for today. My name is Mr. Orange Ranger. Now, I know your regular teacher was taking you through the Boom Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comics, and today you were going to be taking a look at issues number 31, 32, and 33. Obviously, as a substitute, I'm not on that lesson plan, but I do think I have something that is just as fitting. So, heroes, if you would please take out the Go-Go Power Rangers Back to School Special. Alright class, we're going to start out by analyzing these covers. I've handed them out to you according to the cover distribution, so most of you got this main cover you see here, where we see the Power Rangers and their Megazord all sort of funneled down towards the unmorphed Rangers chatting around a car. Except for Billy, who's listening to music and not really paying attention, just like that student in the back corner there. Excuse me? Yeah? Eyes up front, please. Thank you. Some of you got this Megazord variant, the Rangers diving into battle alongside their Megazord. Oh, question? Well, no, that's not usually something they actually do. They usually stay inside the Megazord during their fights, but hey, it looks cool, right? And a few of you got this Rangers variant, where we see the helmetless Rangers in their anime style, standing on a floor made of scenes of their regular lives. Now, I don't know about your teacher, but I actually really like the anime look for these Rangers. So, as this starts, the Rangers meet in the command center. Billy says that he has a story for the others, and Kim says that's right, it's how they spent their spring break. Now, students, this is some advanced level reviewing, as the flow of this page is pretty not great. Obviously, we start up top as Zack says he missed everyone, Trini says it was just a week away and there weren't even any monsters, and Kim suggests that Rita sunbathes in that Madonna top. Ugh. But this is where things get tricky. Since Zack responds to Kim's suggestion with the idea that Zordon would have told them that, it seems like this is the next frame. But then he asks Billy what he got up to. Billy says there's no such thing as peace and quiet, and then Kimberly says her doodling skills are now a solid +3. But, a skill being +3 is very clearly a Dungeons & Dragons reference, the bonus granted to a skill after you roll dice for it. That line definitely fits Billy more than it does Kimberly, and he had just been talking. However, Kimberly's the one holding the sketch pad, so it definitely is her line. We come back up here, I think, as Trini cuts her off and asks what she got up to, but she basically says Trini go first. But then we head down below that, and Billy seems to respond to the question Zack asked him 2 frames ago, having learned to pickle eggplant to make mac dough. Anyway, Kim says Zack looks good for someone who also seems to have not slept for a week. I'd say he looks a little comic strip sketch face, but don't tell your teacher that I said that. The bottom of the page gets back to normal as they notice Jason is blushing, and he says he feels like he should share the story of his spring break. He's learned what his favorite dinosaur is. Jason, if the answer to that question is not the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you're going to have a very awkward Zord ride in your future. But no, it is now, in fact, the Micropachycephalosaurus. This story will tell us why. Jason's language credit at Angel Grove High is American Sign Language. He knows it's not his best subject, but figured he could use the skill to help others during the break, so he volunteered at a nearby children's center. This kid seems very suspicious, though. The teacher gives Jason a special assignment. They have a new student, Eliza Reyes, who just recently became deaf after attending a dig in the desert with her father. The teacher wants Jason to work with her one-on-one. As Jason narrates about what he's good at teaching, mainly sports and athletics, we see he's also good at making the other students laugh. But Eliza seems to be frustrated with the process of learning ASL. The bell rings, which begs the immediate question of why a class for deaf students has a bell. I get that the whole center may not be for deaf students, but the teacher was signing to her entire class, so anyway. Jason feels like he's failed and should resign, and he says so, but the teacher signs back to him to reinforce the lesson. Skipping to the end, Jason is so good at everything, even teaching, that he was sort of undefeated. Eliza is the first challenge he's faced there, and he realizes it's not about him succeeding, but her learning. Jason comes in the next day, presumably, and changes tactics, asking Eliza to talk about what she loves. Surprise, surprise, she loves dinosaurs. He holds up a picture of the T-Rex saying he knows that one, but apparently spells it wrong. She corrects him and says that one is a bully. Eliza, young lady, you have hurt that poor Zord's feelings. Just look at its face. Kids these days. No, not you kids. Oh dear. Moving on. She holds up a picture of her favorite, the Micropachycephalosaurus, and spells out the name perfectly, demonstrating her progress. She asks him which one is his favorite, and while this is his chance to defend the T-Rex, he shows he's learned the lesson by telling her that he thinks this is now his favorite dinosaur too. This was actually a pretty good story, students. Did you notice how it flowed very well and contained a natural lesson for Jason? Jason needing to learn to deal with a failure to teach and then adjust his methods is a very natural and fitting lesson that's perfect for his character. Jason's story gets an A-. A small bit of transitional dialogue sends us to Zack's story. Zack's brother works for a senator in Washington, D.C., and that senator is sponsoring a bill to reform insurance claims for monster attacks. Interesting. After Zack meets the senator, his brother shows him what he'll be doing, wrangling giant piles of paper. His brother explains that this isn't going to be glamorous, probably no reward, but even more enemies for the senator. But this is vital. A clerical error created a technicality that made the proposal fail the first time, and she only has one more shot at this. The insurance companies are claiming the fights between the Rangers and monsters don't fall under their coverage, and basically that people could just leave Angel Grove. Zack says he has a plan. It's not really clear what that plan is, as Zack just goes through the papers and corrects some errors he happens to know, like where a certain monster fight took place. He even seems to imagine himself fighting a monster filing cabinet. He stays up into the night, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. The next day, the vote is held, but Zack is clearly tired. The senator seems to make some remarks to a TV station outside the Capitol, definitely not in session, but then as Zack nods off, it's announced that the bill has passed. So who knows where she was supposed to be? Don't let your civics teacher see this. They'll get really upset. Anyway, the bill of course passes, now guaranteeing insurance companies must cover monster attack damage. Whew, boy, that coverage is gonna be pricey though. Zack is totally conked out, and his brother gives him a jacket blanket as they go to celebrate. You see, students, this story kind of perfectly demonstrates the difficulty you can have in reviewing a story that is less than ideal. There's nothing about the plot details of the story that's terribly offensive. Zack does some civic good, and there's a nice little point within the entire story about the little people working to make good on some of the necessary evils of their being Power Rangers. However, there is one thing about this story that I can say is incredibly offensive, and that is that it is incredibly boring. It's oddly fitting that Zack falls asleep at the end of the story, because I was feeling the same way. The only action in the entire story is Zack kicking a monster filing cabinet, and that was either his imagination or just a demonstration of the text. Civics is important, don't get me wrong. It's just that there's little overlap between the viewers of Power Rangers and C-SPAN. Zack's story gets a D. Trini is amazed Zack helped so many, but he says that it's not a contest. Maybe she feels that way because she didn't help anybody. Any person, that is. Trini went to a rescue horse ranch to volunteer. She fell in love with one horse there, Pineapple. Tragedy striking in 10. Literally, as soon as she says the words, my favorite of all was Pineapple, a man runs up and tells her a storm blew down one of the fences and Pineapple has escaped. Trini grabs another horse to go search, narrating that the man came along too. The two agreed to turn back, but Trini kept going instead, feeling like she was close. And indeed she was, finding Pineapple trapped between some boulders with coyotes closing in. Trini morphs? Which feels like an irresponsible use of her powers, but it's not like any of us wouldn't have done the same thing, right class? Though it becomes a little sillier when the morph Trini then uses her whistle to chase the coyotes off. And oh, by the way, how is she blowing through her helmet? Yes, I know Tommy supposedly plays the dragon flute through his helmet, but I guess I just never saw it as actually blowing into it. Are there little holes in the mouth plate? Anyway, Trini approaches the horse, who starts kicking her. She removes her helmet, but this doesn't help. She hears the coyotes howling, signaling a return. There's no cell phone service, and she realizes that the horse she rode here on is currently alone. But she refuses to leave Pineapple to the mercy of the coyotes, as even if she survived, it's a steep climb back out of the canyon. She realizes the only thing she can do is try and pull the horse out, knowing it's going to kick and even bite her, since it can't understand that she's trying to help. Oh, what's that? A question? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I agree. It is a little silly that Trini seems to react in pain at the horse biting her arm when she is morphed and can tank lasers to the body without it hurting. Trini tugs the horse, realizing this is made worse by the fact that this horse had been abused, so she thinks she's just being hurt by yet another person. Trini apologizes to the horse, which is a little odd since she just established that she knows the horse can't understand her, but maybe it's meaningful to her to do so. And she says that she'll never hurt the horse or leave it behind. She gets the horse free, leads it out of the canyon, and returns to the ranch. And that's it. And that's it is kind of my overall point about this story, class. In this story, Trini volunteers at a rescue horse ranch and befriends a horse. The horse escapes. Trini rescues it and returns to the ranch. And that's it. Zack at least helped a whole lot of people. Trini rescued one horse. Her story at least had more action than Zack's, but less meaning. And it's not like I hate animals. Saving a horse is still a really nice thing to do. It's just like, so hey, on my way to work, I stopped and picked up a turtle that was in the middle of the road so it wouldn't get hit. It's a nice enough story, sure, but if anybody had paid me to hear it, they'd be very disappointed. Trini's story gets a D-. We've covered boring, we've covered meaningless. Class, let's tackle confusing next with our main brain, Billy. The prelude to Billy's story hints it has something to do with public speaking, and as Billy orders something from a food truck at the Schuyler Street Food Festival, he narrates about his parents feeling he needs relevant experience for his college resume. Billy overhears some racists talking about foreigners entering the country, then someone screams, he looks up, and something happens. Seriously, class, I will get your teacher to give you extra credit if you can piece this sequence together logically. I thought someone ran into Billy, knocking his food onto her, but no, his food is over there. So she just dropped her food on herself? The girl talks about how she's supposed to go up and speak to the crowd, and she knows people are grumbling about them being there. Her mom bought her new clothes to try and make the best impression, and now this happens. So this story is setting up to be pretty meaningful between the racists that were talking before, the shawl this girl is wearing, and her skin tone. I mean, it's not a terribly large leap to think that she's Middle Eastern, right? Billy starts cleaning her off and stammeringly introducing himself. Her name is Nazik. Billy asks if she's new in town. Heh, did the Scottish accent tip you off? A joke? Lesson, students. Don't make a joke about how something sounds when we can't hear a comic book. You may remember the note from Linkara in the chapter about music, how silly it is to reference an original song in a printed medium. I mean, I'm not even sure this is a joke. I thought for a while that she was just Scottish. Billy even weakly seems to possibly joke back, saying he was thrown when she didn't try to deep fry something, that itself being kind of a stereotypical and almost racist joke. Your guess is as good as mine where the action moves from here. Honest to goodness, I read this top horizontal, bottom horizontal, and in vertical rows, and it kind of works both ways. Anyway, just summarizing, Billy explains how he has to speak too, and has some sort of solution that involves food. She says different food would be a better choice. I literally have no idea what's going on right now. So, the two go to make their presentation together. Billy trips on a mic cord and spills the dish he was carrying onto her. The crowd starts berating him, and she tells them to knock it off. He helped her, and they just want to fit in. Apparently, that's enough? I mean, not even sure what she was supposed to say. What was she presenting? What is the point of any of this? But some people in the crowd see her parents and point out she was calm and graceful under pressure, and the dish she brought out smelled amazing? Seriously, what is happening? As you might have expected, it turns out that the two of them planned this, Billy realizing that making her look good by messing up himself would make a good impression. Nazik's younger siblings run up and congratulate her, and she thanks Billy for his help. I genuinely have no idea about that story. I realize that I'm supposed to be teaching you about it, class, but I just have no idea what was going on. What were Billy and Nazik going on stage to do? Bring a dish up there in front of the crowd and talk about it? Why did Nazik make such a bad joke about being Scottish and Billy roll with it when we can't hear the comic to hear her accent? How did a girl getting whatever it was spilled on her and saying hello diffuse racist people that were looking for their MAGA hats? And if this crowd is supposed to be potentially racist, why is one of them wearing a shirt that references Korean pop? Yeah, this whatever it is, I'm not familiar with it, shirt actually references the group Blackpink, which I thought was pretty cute because the shirt itself is black and pink. Zack's story was boring but meaningful civically. Trini's story was meaningless but kinda heartwarming. This just makes no sense. It did hold my attention, but only because I was so incredibly confused. I'm sorry, Billy, this might shock you into catatonics, but I'm afraid your story gets an F. Onward to Kim, who is jealous of all the adventures her friends got up to. I know, right? Jason did sign language, Zack did paperwork, Trini saved one horse, Billy threw food at a girl. Adventure! Anyway, Kimberly decides to be the one of the five that's actually a real teenager who had no plans. However, that caught the attention of her now officially divorced in this continuity parents, who decided to make up for the trauma of that by getting very involved in her life. The story is structured with Kim explaining the situation, intercut with images of her training, while we also see the doodles that she referenced earlier, a guide on how to sneak out of your house. Power Rangers, teaching those good family lessons. She says that even as recently as 6 months ago, she'd never have snuck out while getting this level of attention from her parents. But now she sees it as ingenuine. Her dad calls and tells her to study, and that's supposed to make up for the fact that he hasn't been there in months. Not much going on this page, but her notes here are actually interesting. I don't know who this is being addressed to, herself, I guess, but she advises not sneaking out for parties because someone will tell and then she won't be able to train. It's actually quite responsible of her. So, one day Kim's mom is watering the flowers and seems to notice something about the side of the house. The next day, Kim has a ranger battle or trains or something and climbs up to sneak back in, and her mother is there waiting for her. Her mom tells her off, giving her more studying to do, and says she hopes she's learned her lesson. And she has. Even a good trick has its limits. Kimberly sneaks out of her house to train, but her mom catches her and makes her study. One line. The doodle guide is cute, but I actually kind of wish that had been her story. They try to force in some other stuff to add a little action to the story, but it's just not enough, so just cut it. Her mom has been extra focused on her since the divorce, so all she was able to do during spring break was study and doodle this little guide about getting out of the house. Not as confusing as Billy's story, but not as interesting as any of them. Kimberly's story gets a D. If that was where this comic ended, well, I don't want to be mean, students. You should always try to keep your reviews even-handed, but I would kind of wonder why it was made in the first place. Unlike other Power Ranger annuals, this thing does have a framing device, and we return to it here. The Rangers all rib each other about their spring break stories when the alarms go off and Alpha reports from the Zord Bay saying there's trouble. 1. Why is Alpha in the Zord Bay? It gives me the impression that the artist just couldn't pull off Alpha, so they had to keep him off panel. 2. If Alpha is in the Zord Bay, then Zordon and the Rangers in the command center would have a far better sense of what was actually happening. Oh, and Zack makes a Pokemon joke, responding to there being trouble by saying, "Make it a double," referencing Team Rocket. But then since he's supposed to be like 15 in Go-Go, he makes sure to clarify that he's just kidding and he's only had virgin pina coladas. Ha. Ha. Nice splash page with the very hearable musical title. But for some reason, it's not very poster-esque the way others have been. Rita has sent the Enemonstro, a giant sea anemone. It's already giant and attacks some people on the beach, but Zack comes in with the Mastodon Zord for the save. None in the hand versus 2 also not in the hand. Getting a little frustrating for you there? A nenanimcompoop? Kim, just don't, okay? Kim starts to do some kind of attack, and then the monster learns her moves, which we see demonstrated by a sign that says danger. Take notes, students, not the best way to demonstrate the action of a scene. She flies off to avoid the counter. Billy decides to move in, calculating a 48 to 52% chance of success, so basically 50-50, but says, screw it. I think, is it okay if I said screw it? Sorry if anybody gets upset about that. Anyway, moving on. He fires his horn chains at the monsters. There's no sign that this doesn't work, but Jason comes running in, saying he's got Billy, like he's saving him. The monster slaps the T-Rex Zord away. Jason's Zord is down, but he can still communicate. He remembers his lesson from spring break. Put aside your pride and trust in what you've taught the others. He tells Trini to take the shot. So, instantly, Trini's Zord is then in the monster's mouth. She remembers her lesson, though it doesn't apply nearly as well. This is a beast acting on instinct, whereas she has choices in her actions. As this monster starts swallowing her Zord, her choice is to somehow form the Megazord, despite her Zord being half swallowed. This splash page is more poster-esque, though. All together, and together for all! Will you people please shut up? What? No, not you people. I actually welcome a little side discussion in my classes, as long as you're picking up the material. So, and I'm getting a little dizzy again, Trini says the monster is charged up, but Zack says not fast enough. Then the Megazord is over here, but also over here, knocked over by the monster. So yes, Zack, it was fast enough. It goes to take a bite out of the tin can, but opening its mouth, the one on its chest anyway, is the opening that they've been waiting for. And they use the Megazord's lightning horn attack to blast it, and it explodes. Time for a new recipe, Billy. This fish is fried. Kimberly, see me after class. What? Your name is Kimberly? Oh, sorry, not you. I was talking to the character. The Rangers stand on the Megazord's shoulder at sunset discussing the fight. They didn't miss a beat despite the week off, and Jason was thinking about how this fight and the spring break week demonstrate why they were chosen. Kim has a mind like a steel trap when her back is against the wall. Trini is bold and ferocious when helping people. Zack instantly jumped in to help people before attacking the guilty, and Billy is not just smart, but generous and understanding. Kim points out that their leader, Mr. Not About My Own Pride, is pretty good too. And they are the Power Rangers, now and for always. And within 3 years, none of them will be Power Rangers besides the whole Once a Ranger idea. I know that the framing device is technically the 6th story, but I don't feel any need to grade it besides summing up this comic as a whole. Students, I hate saying this, I really do, but this comic is terrible. There was potential in the whole spring break stories thing, and a couple of those stories were actually kind of enjoyable. Jason's was by far the best, having the most meaningful and interesting things going on. Kim's story was pretty cute, but like I said, I wish they had focused either on the sneaking out guide thing or the training under her mom's nose thing. Trini's story had the most action, but it was simple and felt shallow. Zack's was just boring, kind of fitting for governmental politics. Again, don't tell your civics teacher. And I maintain that Billy's story did not make the first bit of sense. I will say that the art for the most part is pretty good. As I mentioned with the covers, I actually kind of like the whole chibi anime aesthetic for these Rangers in this story, especially reflecting the fact that they're younger Rangers. I think that works pretty well and is overall pretty cute. The framing device story just feels kind of unnecessary, and I do find myself wishing that they had just skipped it, even if it would have given this less of a reason to exist. That speech that Jason gave about why each of the Rangers was chosen could have just been tacked on right after the stories and fit just as well. The Zord fight was not only uninteresting, but badly written and plotted out with sequence breaks and confusing action. It also raises the question of what Rita was doing during spring break. The show has used the whole Rangers going on a vacation thing before, but they establish a reason for why the villain can't act. Say, Finster ran out of magic clay and had to make a trip to go get more. Heck, just reuse the whole Lord Zed replenishing evil energy with a nap thing. That might have been a cute reference, actually. I personally love the Boom Studios Power Rangers comics, and lately I've been double loving Go-Go Power Rangers. So remember, students, teachers don't like giving out bad grades, especially to students that they admire. Go-Go Power Rangers Back to School, overall, gets a D-. Alright class, thank you very much for your attention. Remember that your teacher wants you to read and take notes on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issues number 31 through 33 for discussion next time. Enjoy your lunch period, and may the power protect you. My name is Mr. Orange. I knew I was going to screw that name up. Billy seems to respond to the question. The back of the page gets back to normal as they notice Jason is blushing. The back of the page? The bottom of the page gets back to normal as they notice that The bottom of the page gets back to normal as they notice... I can't seem to talk today. The only action... crud. Trini grabs another horse to go search, narrating the... Billy overhears some racists talking about foreigners entering... I thought someone ran into Billy knowing his food onto her. This was just incredibly confusing. This just makes no sense. But if it was, this thing would not have a reason to exist. This unlike fuck one, get the comic, stupid. Getting a little frustrating for you there? And then getting a little frustrating for you there? And then come fart. Put aside your pride and trust in what the other Dagnabbit.